Danica Connors is back on the show. Today we're going to be tapping into her Wiccan and shamanic knowledge and discuss the holiday of Samhain. While we explore Samhain and some of the rituals and practices around it, we also talk a lot about Wiccan and Pagan practices in general. And we also do tiptoe a little bit around the idea of appropriation and how we can honor the practices that mean a lot to us. This is a beautiful conversation. Very excited to have Danica back and explore these beautiful topics. Hope you get some out of the conversation. We'll see you on the other side. But first, a message from our sponsor. Our healing journey can be difficult and might feel lonely at times. That's why I love sound baths. When we can get together in a community, we intrinsically support and feel supported by others. And that combined energy can help us go deeper into our own healing journeys. And all you have to do is just lay there for 1 hour and listen to beautiful healing sounds. I'm a sound healing practitioner, and I hold sound baths on a regular basis in the greater Seattle area. You can find my next sound baths on my website at adamrealhealing.com. That's Adam, A-D-A-M, Real, R-I-E-H-L, Healing, H-E-A-L-I-N-G.com. adamrealhealing.com. Your healing is worth your time. And now an uninterrupted podcast with Danica Connors. All right, welcome back. Today I'm talking again with Danica Connors. Danica is my, house resident shamanic practitioner and Wiccan practitioner. Had her on the show before. Danica is also a clinical herbalist, deep knowledge in herbalism and earth medicines, and just amazing, beautiful knowledge. So today we're going to talk about Samhain. Right, we're right on the doorstep of Samhain. When this episode comes out, it'll probably come out the Tuesday before Samhain. Which is a 3-day period, the 31st to the 2nd or something like that. So Danica is going to share her knowledge of what Sow-wen is, and I love this conversation. But what I want to do is start it off with a definition. So perusing the internet not too long ago, I was reading the definition of nature. And the reason I bring this up is because Wiccan and shamanic practicing is a lot to do with nature, the world, the universe, and what we have around us. So with that in mind, the definition of nature that I found on the internet, I think it was the Webster's Dictionary, was the phenomena of the physical world, collectively including plants, animals, and landscapes, opposed to humans and human creations. So basically, the definition of nature is everything that is in this world, but not humans, and not what humans create. So I just thought that would be kind of interesting way to start this off, because a lot of what these practices are and what I've personally been stepping towards as a practitioner is involving all of what the world offers, all of what nature offers, and even all of even human creations within that, right? Because I'm a sound healer, so yes, I have chimes and bells and whistles and bowls and stuff like that I play with, but I also incorporate like bass tones, which are human creations that are electronically created, right? And that is also a level of sound healing that we're doing. The bowls that I use were created by humans, right? And that natural sound that they create is healing to the human. It's healing to nature. It reminds us of nature. But the definition of nature removes us from nature. How fucking crazy is that?
It's ridiculous.
That's so crazy.
I mean, that as soon as you said that statement, I was like,
And that was the first definition too.
Really disagree with that statement in every way. I mean, one of the things, and this is kind of within Wicca, there are different ways of looking at certain things, whether it's dualistic, polytheistic, animistic, it all goes in there. But for me, animism is a big part of it. And animism is that there is spirit in everything.
Right.
Everything, whether we call it animate or inanimate, it's all animate. And it's all a part of it. And to have a definition that inherently says that humanity is separate from nature, when for me, everything on this planet is nature.
Right.
All of it. Every single bit. So, for me, animism, that's part of where Wicca and certain, different styles of paganism, that animistic piece is critical to the definition of who we are. And that type of definition that you just read off is the thing that separates us and begins to allow us to harm this planet. Because if we don't see the planet as part of ourselves and we're not a part of it, there's no reason to take care of it. You just utilize it like a resource and cast it aside. And that's part of what I think one of the main issues is when we say, when we look at our definitions of the hierarchy of where everything is supposed to be.
Right.
I mean, what really is hierarchy when we come right down to it?
Right.
When every single thing on this planet, animate and inanimate, has a part to play. And nothing is more important than the other. They are all, every tiny little thing, massively critical.
Right.
So...
Yep. And even if you look at, things like, I know we're already getting off topic, which is great. But if you look at things like the food chain, right? The food chain that we've all been taught since we were children, the top of the food chain typically is a human. And that's, because we're alpha predators, right? But okay, so even defining that, and if you look at what an alpha predator is, let's take a lion, right? A lion is a true alpha predator, right? Not a lot of things can kill that lion. Lions can kill a lot of shit. But the difference is between a human and a lion doesn't just kill for fun. A lion doesn't just kill because. A lion kills because it needs to eat, it needs to feed its family, and then it's done. It doesn't just say, oh, there's another buffalo, I'm going to go kill that fucker too, just in case, right? Humans will kill just because, right? I don't need a herd of cow, but I'm going to kill that herd of cow because you never know. I might need it down the road, right? So... are we really alpha predators? Are we really the top of the food chain? No, we're fucking assholes. We kill, we destroy, we create, but we do it at our own will. We don't do it out of necessity. It might have started out of necessity, but now it's a commodity, right? So even that, the way that we structure ourselves in nature, which another thing, if in religion, if we separate humans from nature, then why did God ask Noah to take 2 of every animal on the ark to help repopulate the world? The animals clearly were important for some reason. And I do hear people talk about God's creatures, but when it comes to nature, no. We are what we are and you are what you are, and there's no separation. There's all it is separation.
And I think that also, there are so many cultures that wasn't the issue.
Right.
Through many, many different types of spiritualities, that was not the issue. Earth-based spirituality has been around way before the separation of, certain spiritual beliefs and capitalism came in order to go, we have to be able to de-spiritualize and make things inanimate in order to get where we need to go in order to create a certain amount of power. But the percentage of the belief systems that have been in place for a very long time of having deep connection to this planet is much larger and was in place a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I kind of, in a way, feel like, we're... the old songs are coming back.
I feel
the
that.
old songs are coming back in our bones.
Yeah.
And they're being sung and they're being remembered and they're being recreated now. And we are, I think, in a time where there's a lot of what I would call death throes of and the holding on of what no longer works.
Right. Well, I think if you look at the world in the sense of yugas, right? We're in the Kali Yuga, which is the yuga of ignorance. So there's 4 yugas. I think this is a Hindu-based idea, but I might be mistaken. But this is where I learned it from, was in Hindu lore. But there's 4 yugas, and I can't remember all of them, but I know that we're in the Kali Yuga. Each yuga lasts 25,690 years. And so we are in the age of ignorance. We're coming out of that age of ignorance and coming back into the age of enlightenment. And which is another reason why a lot of people theorize there's so many people here right now. Because all the souls want to be back on this planet right now to see the ignorance stop and see the enlightenment come back. And they want to usher in that enlightenment age and be here with that. And so, in that, again, natural cycles of life, like we're embracing and we're really fucking leaning into that ignorance. We're really embracing the ignorance that we have. But speaking for myself, being a what I would consider a staunch atheist, in recovery, 15 years ago, you could have asked me anything about spirituality, religion, earth medicine, and I would have laughed you away. No, I don't have space for it. Don't want to think about it. But the pinprick of light came through, and I just needed to keep scratching away at that light, and the pinprick got bigger. And in being that staunch atheist and non-religious person, now like finding peace in earth medicines and the idea of gods and goddesses and the ideas of spirit, it brings me so much comfort and peace. Even though I know I don't fully true believe it yet, there's still parts of me that are like, this is bullshit, Adam. Like I was telling you before before we hit record, I had a client yesterday, and I haven't had this voice in my head pop up in a while, but this voice popped up in my head while I'm working on my client, and it said basically, Adam, you're pantomiming over this human. Do you actually think you're doing any work? Do you think you're doing any benefit for this human? It's like, shut up, ego. We got this. And but again, that was the first time I've heard that voice in a while, but. It was almost there to remind me how much I do believe and how much I do understand what I'm moving towards, instead of the misunderstanding and the misguidance of what I was leaving. So it's like, now instead of that voice being annoying, now that voice is reassuring, because it's like, no, I do know what I'm doing, and I do feel this, and I do feel that this is beneficial, and I do feel that this is the right path for me. So understanding that and understanding, where your personal energies lie, I think is part of that path of the confusion of life. And you say, remember, remember, I have remember tattooed on my fingers because we're forgetful people. I think that's part of our journey too, is to forget all the things we know that are beneficial for us so we can feel the joy when we remember it.
Oh, there's a lovely thought.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that a lot.
I can't remember who I was talking to. We were at a great conversation a while back about that idea. And there's part of me that thinks that when we get excited about something we learn new, it's not that it's like this new passion we've discovered. It's rediscovering something we've been super passionate about our entire existence. And now it's finally came back into our field of being.
And
we're
that's, I agree with that 150%. I'm pretty much, that's how I came into Wicca and witchcraft. It had not, and you hear this over and over again. It's not something you find, it's something you remember.
Yeah.
It's something you've always been. Always been. And when the door opens in this reality, it feels like this knowing comes from the inside of your bones and the outside of everything you've ever known, colliding into one place. And you go, I remember that like it was yesterday. And it's something that you have not known at all in this lifetime. So I think it's an awakening. It's a remembering in many ways, and it feels like home, and it feels like comfort when you reach it. It's not giant bells and whistles. At least it wasn't for me. It was this unbelievable, all-encompassing sense of knowing and peace.
Yes. When I first started my Reiki training, the woman, Hannah Talbot, who's been on the show a few times, one of the first things she said that will always stick with me is that when you're in this practice now, you're in this energetic state, it's like walking yourself home. And that really was like, wow, that is exactly what it feels like. It's walking myself back to a familiar place that I know, but I don't know. But as soon as I experience it, I'm like, oh, I can take a breath, fresh air finally. Now I can breathe. Now I feel like I belong. And as much as my ego tempts that knowing that I have, that internal gnosis, that comfort that I feel is something that I can't be contented with.
Yeah, that walking yourself home, is exactly what happens with me doing these seasonal festivals. Re-engaging with them is walking yourself home on a spiral. It's a circle, but there's a linear piece. So whenever you reach the same point again, it's always at a different level, but it's always re-engaging yourself in a deep connection of the patterns around us on this planet, and knowing how we as humans are deeply embedded in it, are a giant part of it, and there's no way of removing yourself from it. Right. So when you reconnect through these different festivals, you're just reminding yourself. You go, oh, right, I'm doing something that generation after generation after generation after generation in their own way have been doing since man existed. since humanity has existed, since woman has existed, since any of us have been around, we have been connecting to the seasons. It is our lifeblood.
Yeah.
Without it, we're nowhere.
Right.
So it's just about kind of bringing it more to a very conscious place and how to engage ritualistically in ways that kind of switch your switches on.
Love that. And thank you for bringing it back to the topic.
Oh, okay.
Look at you. Yeah, nice. That was a big oblong circle. So Sow-wen, and so I'll just say this: I had to spell out Sow-wen, and then realize that I didn't spell it anywhere right. So Sow-wen is spelled Samhan, right?
So in all reality,
Okay.
there are probably 4 or 5 different ways of spelling it.
Okay.
And a lot of it is done in the Gaelic languages. So either in Irish,
Okay.
Welsh, or Scottish.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so, believe me, there are multiple ways of spelling it, but there's one correct way of saying it, and that's Sow-wen.
Sow-wen.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so, let's chat about Sow-wen. So, what is this beautiful celebration that is a seasonal celebration that we experience?
Okay, so Samhain is technically our 3rd harvest festival.
Okay.
The first one starts at Lunasa, and then the next one goes into Mabon or autumn equinox, and the third one goes here at Samhain.
Okay.
And this was the time when the culling of the herds happened. We're going into the colder months, and not all of that herd is going to survive. And you're going to have to cull it in order to provide for the people as well, providing food. So death and the sound of it was everywhere
Okay.
at this time. Okay. With Samhain, we honor the dead. We honor those who have passed in the past year. We honor those who had passed at any point as well. And it's usually, this is the Irish word for Samhain basically means summer's end.
Okay.
And, it's interesting how there are a couple of theories as to why the Celts chose this time to be our new year. It's not winter
January 1st.
solstice.
Okay.
It's not January 1st, which is a total different calendar thing,
Just a-
right? And it's not winter solstice when the sun begins to start its climb back up.
Right. Okay.
It is at this point in Samhain. And one of the theories is because that was the point lowest on the horizon where the sun could be seen via the standing stones.
Oh. Okay.
There's also a lot of theory around dusk being, for the Celts, the time when the day starts, not when it begins. So morning or dawn is not when it begins.
Okay.
Dusk is when it begins.
Interesting.
So dusk is the beginning of the year
All right.
from the larger picture.
Okay.
And that's Samhain. So we have this 8-spoked wheel when you look at the festivals. 4 of them are like a giant cross, and they're very solar. So you have your winter solstice and your summer solstice and your spring equinox and your autumn equinox.
Okay.
And then there's this like big X in between them. And those tend to be very, very Celtic-oriented fire festivals. They're in the in-between. They're the time of the dusk,
Okay.
right? So we have things like Imbolc and Beltane and Lunasa and Samhain. So this little juncture in time, this 3-day juncture, was like this spoke or the wheel just going click, and you have this moment where everything is very, very thin. And because everything is very, very thin, there's a lot of chaos that reigns. And that it is a time when spirits pass. So we do see a lot of death at this time.
Okay.
Spirits passing, leaving, and then there are those who come back in order to say hello. It is a time to honor your ancestors. But it's also a time for divination, because the veils are very, very thin.
Yeah.
One of my practices, because I am a tarot reader, is I always do on Samhain night a 12-card spread, 1 card for each month of the upcoming year for me.
Okay.
So that's something that's really important to me. But there's also it's also a time of culling, and it's serious culling. This isn't like a New Year's resolution. I tell people that the things that go in the cauldron to be burnt on Samhain night are the things that when somebody says, if you have time to sit back and think of something that you got to let go of, what would it be? And usually the first thing that comes to you, your body goes, I'd rather throw up than do that. Yep. I would rather cut my own hand off. And you just put it away in the back the second you think of it. It's that thing.
That thing, yep.
It's that thing. And whatever it is that goes on the cauldron that night leaves your life. Leaves it by Samhain of the following year.
Okay.
So you have to be very careful, very choosy, and this isn't a New Year's resolution.
Right.
This is a big, big thing.
Yeah.
Because this is about death. What is killing you?
Yeah. Huh.
And how to know that even though it might feel horrible and emotionally just overwhelming to do it, it's killing you. It's gotta go.
Yeah.
And that goes in the cauldron on that night.
Wow.
The other thing is also with part of the within Wicca. So not everybody necessarily does this in this way. It can just be seasonal festivals, right? But there's also in Wicca the process of divinity and the story of the goddess and the god that rolls through it as well. And on this festival, the god who is sacrificed, his lifeblood is given in order to help the land rebuild, or the goddess rebuild.
Okay.
And his body dies, but his soul passes at this time. It is part of why the veils go so thin, right? And it's when the goddess becomes the crone and grieves the loss. So the holding space for grieving and death and pain is experienced by our gods, not just us.
Yeah.
They understand because they're going through it. And we're going through it all the time as well. So it's not like some gods are looking down and going, oh, you poor humans, you're having a hard time.
Yeah.
Right? This is the goddess keening out of control.
Wow.
This is the death and the loss that happens. And it's built to be and should be. We have very few in this culture death rites.
Right. To
hold space. We give somebody an antidepressant and try and get them to go back to work.
Right, yeah.
During this time. And Samhain is not. Samhain should have, some fun and celebration in there, It's a fire festival for the Celts, but, the fires also help keep away the scary, spooky, icky spirits that you didn't want, crawling all over your system at that point. But it's that time where we hold space. We talk about, we invoke and honor those who have passed and the grief that comes with it,
right.
The loss that comes with it. I like to do what's called a dumb supper. It's a silent supper.
Oh.
Yes, and a table is set, and everybody who is at the ritual brings a dish that either you're genetically linked to, or whomever has passed in your life, that was their dish, or something that honors them.
Okay.
So everybody gets to talk about the dish and who they're honoring. And at the end of the table is set an empty plate, empty chair, empty glass. And it's for the spirits that you're evoking. And we put a bit of each one of those things there. Everybody sits down and has dinner, and it's silent. In honor, and there are pictures of loved ones and altars and things like that. And it is that point of honoring, because it's also in silence. It's about quieting and holding place and not talking over our feelings and our processes. It's about prepping how to hold space for the dark that's coming.
You had mentioned something, I don't know if we were recording or not yet, but you had mentioned something about our inability to sit with sensations, humans and inabilities, and so that kind of speaks to me with what you're saying. And you know, one of the things that I recognized when I started my plant medicine journeys was that kind of idea was, we don't like to sit with intense sensations, even intense like happiness. Like think about being tickled. People are like, no, stop. Obviously we want intense sadness and grief to go, right? But we have to realize there's a purpose for it, right? There's a reason that we have this. There's a reason we have anxiety. There's a reason we have depression. There's information coming in. We just don't let it take over us, right? So when we can learn how to embrace a time of the year where we have these mixed feelings of sadness of people leaving us that have left us, but we're remembering their happiness that they brought us, the gifts that they brought this world. There is definitely a sadness that is with that because we're missing them, but there is a happiness and appreciation for what they've given us and what they've offered and what we've learned from them. So learning how to sit with those sad sensations, those longing sensations, the remorse, what I get to say to that person that passed. I think that's part of the lesson too with what you're saying, is that we have to be able to sit with that sadness, that grief, that happiness, that elation, because that's all part of the human experience. That's part of why we're here, is to understand our emotions, the full spectrum of what the emotions offer us. So when somebody passes, we put them in the ground, we forget about them, and that's it. Because if we think about them, we'll be sad. But with that sadness is also happiness. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're carving out space for that full spectrum of the human emotional scale again with this ritual of silence.
Mm-hmm. It's permission.
Yeah.
We're not given permission to do this. And it is really hard to lock down and shut off when you're in a room full of a bunch of people all talking about who's died.
Yeah.
There's no, it's very hard not to keep that door slammed shut, because there's permission to cry, and there's permission to be angry, and there's permission to be shut off, but it's all there. You're not avoiding it. It's right there.
Yeah.
And so many Wiccans this is their holiday, man.
Yeah.
This is their time. The hats come out, the jack-o'-lanterns come out, everything, all the ancestor altars come flying out, and it's all and it's great, and it's really, really, really exciting. I mean, we forget, even jack-o'-lanterns have a history, have a process. That's an Irish myth. Jack of the Lantern, who pissed off the devil way back when. He was called Stingy Jack.
Okay.
Because he was having a conversation with the devil and got him to buy him a drink, right? But didn't want to pay for it. So tricked the devil into turning himself into a coin, got the coin and put it in his pocket next to a cross so the devil couldn't actually re-emerge. And so there are more stories about how he would trick the devil. So when Stingy Jack finally died, God didn't want him. Yeah. For all of that, what he did. And the devil's like, I'm not taking you into hell. So he left Stingy Jack and cast him into the night with a coal. Nothing but a coal. And Jack found a turnip, put it in there, and that's his lantern.
Interesting.
And so we have this entire Jack of the Lanterns.
Yeah.
Jack-o'-lantern. And a pumpkin is really pretty perfect for that. It's a little easier than a turnip, right?
Yeah, turnip, I was going to say, it's a small thing to carve.
Yes. So the American piece of turning that, when I love, one of my beautiful, personal rituals around this is I will always carve a pumpkin.
Okay.
And it stays lit all night for those 3 nights, from night to night. They're lit so that it keeps the icky spirits away from my door, but it also invites all of those whom I love, who want to be there.
Right.
Right. So I love that little tradition. And the whole concept of, the trick-or-treating thing, that's an old mumming thing. Yeah. And that's an old Irish thing where on this night of chaos, right, it wasn't just the spiritual chaos. They would cross-dress. Like, this is where, there would be skins and costumes and all kinds of things in order to confuse the mean spirits. And they would go from door to door to door, and they would, if you didn't give them treats, you'd get a trick. Like, this is where this whole process started way back when. And then it even emerged into, like, soul cakes. When Christianity came to, those islands, even that tradition, so many of the traditions are still there, just under different guise, right? Where those who couldn't afford it, who were struggling financially, would go door to door and ask for a soul cake on that night so that they would bring blessings to their dead.
Oh, wow.
So there's so much in this tradition. It was brought here by the English and the Irish.
Okay.
That's why Halloween exists, gang.
Yeah.
I'm just putting that puppy right on out there.
Wow.
But it is a holiday, like, you can feel it. If anybody who's sensitive on that night, it's like your skin prickles. There's something special in the air on that night if you take the time to feel it, to really, really feel it.
Yeah.
And it's the restart. It's the moment of, like, a chaos before the wheel of the whole year starts again.
Wow.
It's one of my favorite. I can't say it. I can't say that. I love them all.
Yeah.
I get to each one and I go, oh, I love that festival. And then I get to the next one and I love that festival.
This is my favorite one.
This is my favorite
They're all
one
my favorites.
right now. But it's important to go from the go to the slow down. And that's part of the, how do you embrace the dark? I can't remember, oh God, there's a song, I Am My Mother's Savage Daughter. It's a great song for any of you out there. Go, all of you pagans out there, go take a look. Especially the females or any of you who associate with feminine, please do. But it talks about I can't remember the line exactly, but it's like, we are all born out of darkness into this lifetime through blood and through pain. We are birthed through the canal, through screaming and pain and blood into this life, right? We have to acknowledge those pieces.
Yeah.
We can't just think everything's just going to be cotton candy and we'll ascend, right? So Samhain is like, there is power in the dark. This is how you leave, and this is how you come in.
Right.
And this is how we're going to remember this at this moment. Because I have a pet snake. One of the processes of that, when I got her, was I was very consciously wanting to be a part of the process of death.
Okay.
So I choose the rat that she eats. I put that rat in there. I watch. I see death all the time. And it becomes a part of our reality.
Right. Because it is our reality.
It is our reality.
Yeah.
It is our reality. So I think that it makes us appreciate each moment that we have.
I agree with that. And I think that kind of goes back to the sensations idea we were just talking about. I can honestly say I've never killed an animal out of necessity, right? I've never killed an animal because I needed to eat it. I don't think I've ever set out to kill an animal. I might have accidentally hit one with my car or something like that, but I'm not, I don't use firearms and shit like that. Not against them, but there is that sense of moving away from death, not wanting to witness death, not wanting to be a part of it. Death is dirty. Death is, it's evil, but it's all perception, right? Even darkness, darkness is a perception. Darkness we think is as evil because darkness is cold. Darkness, things can hide. darkness, we don't feel safe, right? But in the light,
and the movies tell us so.
exactly, right? But in the light, we're warm. We can see shit. We can see if there's predators out there. So light is good, darkness is bad, right? But it's all perception. I love that. There's a gentleman I was listening to a while back, and he was talking about the God color, right? The God color. Well, a lot of us think of the God color as white, right? This enlightenment, this light, this white light. We talk about the white light all the time. But his point was, let's say the concept of God. God is everything, right? God is all things, except nature, apparently. But let's just take the concept. God is all things. And when you mix all things together, let's take all colors. When you mix all of the color spectrum together, you get the color black. You don't get the color white. So in true essence, the God color is black because God is everything. But we've deemed black or darkness as negative or demonic. But if we really just take our own consciousness and our own ideas out of that and look at the true whatever it is, then darkness isn't anything but just the opposite of light and opposite of darkness, right?
And they're inherent in each other.
Right. So why do we put emotions towards them? Yeah. And then we put these whole stories around those emotions. And then now we have entire religions, entire belief systems based off of dark, bad, light, good, but man.
And that's, another thing that I love about Wicca is, darkness is associated with the womb. Darkness is associated with earth.
Right.
Darkness is associated with the things that are progenerative. That's why a lot of the dark we see within the goddess. Quite a bit.
Okay.
Right. And it's not that it's not within both.
Yeah.
But it tends to be the realm of. So this is where it gets a little tricky. So when we look at divinity a bit, and believe me, Wiccans, there are as many different opinions on this within Wicca and witchcraft and 1.5 million. So I'm just going to say this is my version of it.
I appreciate
it can be anything you want it to be. Here's just my opinion. So the goddess we picture as a circle. It's infinite and it continues forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, right?
Okay.
However, if that just goes on like that forever and ever and ever and ever, there's not a lot of room for growth. Okay?
Okay.
Then there is the God, which is linear. That goes from point A to point B.
Okay.
Okay? When you put those together, you have a spiral, right? It is through the eternal that the God is birthed, lives, and dies.
Okay.
And continues to happen over and over and over.
Interesting.
Through the eternal regenerative process.
Okay.
Which is represented by the goddess. Darkness, light. Together in one.
Wow.
And how that goes. So that when we see the larger circle of what the divine does, it is the goddess is daughter and mother and grandmother and friend and lover. Same way for the god. Brother, son, king, partner, grandfather, lover, ruler, everything. But they change faces or aspects depending upon where we are. But that's why, we have that circle and that linear bit. And that shows us that when the god dies now, his soul goes, he's reborn at Yule. When the sun, Sown, S-U-N, is reborn.
Wow.
And the goddess changes her aspect to the maiden. So we're seeing, every single part of our god and goddess, or divinity, or however you want to say it, has every single aspect of every human being possible, always.
Wow.
It's all there, all the time. So that you're constantly knowing that wherever you are, there is something to refer to. There is something that makes absolute sense. There is some experience, spiritual experience that you're held in, that your divinity is going through and has gone through and will continue to go through forever.
Yeah.
So I love that the darkness and the light each have their point. The on summer solstice, the king reigns, man. The sunshine and the power of that linear aspect is exactly where it needs to be, right? There's room for all of it everywhere. Peaks and valleys and rebirths and deaths, and it just, gives me goosebumps even just talking about it, because it leaves room for us to be human and to know that humanity, every bit of that humanity, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is all a part of the big picture.
Right. It's so interesting to me, and I loosely know that religion, organized religion that we now know, is basically what kind of put Wicca and paganism kind of on the back burner, like blacklisted. Basically, there's the witch burnings that happened, all this stuff that the demonizing rituals, demonizing plant medicines, things like that, but it seems that, when we step into that natural occurrence of life and we move with the way the world moves, we found our place. Like we have this like 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that is all put together, but there's a piece missing, and it's humanity. But once you put that human piece in there, even if it's an individual piece, it seems like the whole process seems to make sense. But why do we still take that piece out and not even recognize that piece exists? Like, again, speaking from personal experience, staunch atheist. And now I practice plant medicines. I'm trying to work with the seasons, move with the way that the food is produced, eat the food that's in season, things like that. And I find that when I do practice that, everything makes more sense. I'm less anxious, I'm less depressed. I feel like I have a purpose, even though maybe I'm not on the path of what I used to be on, this, corporate Westerner type path. I still feel like I have reason. I have an understanding of what's going on. And so I don't know, there's just the part of me is just like kind of confused on how we got so far away from this. And I know religion is a big thing of it, organized religion is a big thing, colonization, But and even seeing, when you're talking about Halloween and how a lot of these practices were taken from Sow-wen and all these different understandings of rituals and festivals, and then Catholic or religious or Christianized or whatever into now what we have as a quote unquote palatable holiday, Hallmark holidays. I hope that it's not. I hope there's a bigger swing into that understanding again. And it seems like there kind of is. I think the birth of the internet and the ease of information and knowing that I don't have to just sit and pray to a god. I can understand that there's many gods out there, many goddesses, many deities. I mean, the first thing that popped in my head when you mentioned the Celtic day starts at dusk is, well, what I've heard and what I've read is that most of our spiritual, supernatural friends, leprechauns, fairies, all that stuff, are most active at dusk. So I guess in part of me that makes sense that the world would come alive, because that's part of the world too. The part that we don't believe in, that we can't see. I guess some of us do. But like, I want to see a leprechaun. I want to see a little fairy over in the corner. Like, let's do that. I'm going to go out at dusk now and just like be kicking it with the fairies,
Well, it's not just with that type of thing. There's also, it's the in-betweens.
Okay.
So dusk and dawn are in-betweens. It's not day. It's not night.
Okay.
So veils get really, really thin in both of those spots. Like, you can feel it, especially on I don't know. There are just certain nights where you're standing there and you can feel that transition, how powerful it can be. But one of the things, just to step back a little bit, is there are some things to remember. Wicca, as we know it, is a reaction of Christianity, really. I mean, there were people who basically celebrated Earth or connected to Earth-style spiritualities, right? And those had to be named or changed, right? And to re-embrace what that was, witches kind of became what they were, right? And from there, what Wicca is, in all honesty, really is a compilation of a whole bunch of things.
Okay.
And yes, it's not like it's been going since the dawn of time. It has not. It hasn't.
Okay.
It is a modern construct,
Okay.
right? Wicca, as we know it. And it has all kinds of influences: Celtic, Germanic, Roman, and some actually even say, believe it or not, depending upon historically where you go with one of the founders way back when, there's thoughts that he was hanging out with the Native Americans at a certain point.
Oh, okay.
So there's a whole bunch of, like, we forget that this, like, witchcraft and Wicca came as almost like a reaction and a fuck you to the church.
Okay.
In a certain way. Okay, so in a way we are what we are because of what they did. Right?
Okay.
In a certain process. But, for instance, Halloween is called Halloween because the Christian church turned it to all, Hallows Eve or All Hallows for those 3 days. Right? We see that in almost every single festival. There is, like, somewhere within a couple days before to a couple days after, there is a major Christian holiday that was taken to, pretty sure Jesus was not born December 25th.
If you tell me that, then tell me that he's not a white man from the Middle East with long brown hair.
Exactly. But I mean, however people want to picture, that's fine by me.
Right.
But Yule happens on December 21st. So we're looking at, there's, no matter what it is, we can't go, oh my goodness, we've been witches and they've been witches since the dawn of time. Those pagans have been around since the dawn of time. Those who worship in connection to the earth. Bingo.
Right.
But witchcraft and Wicca really kind of has, like, Christianity would weirdly think itself, which you got to be honest about when it comes all the way down to that, right? Yeah. And then what I love about it is there's so much room for polytheism. Whatever deities you want to work with, have at it.
Right.
As long as you're not, just jumping all over somebody's culture.
Right.
That's really important to take into consideration. But it's really hard if all of a sudden you're doing some guided meditation or some shamanic journey or something, and a god or goddess from a completely different culture just shows up in your work and goes, step on up, honey, it's time to work with me. And you're like, what?
Right.
I don't even know who you are. I don't know who you are. I'm not even, I don't even know. I don't genetically fit into this.
Right.
I could get in trouble.
Right. Yep.
And the gods are like, what?
Yeah.
Whose trouble?
Yeah.
I'm here. What's going on? So there's this piece where, yes, you want to be respectful. Yeah. You do not want to walk into another culture and go, hey, I'm taking this.
Right.
Right? But there are many, I don't know, example, Germans or Italians who are druids. Celtic druids.
Right.
So really, we're coming very quickly to terms with the fact that spirit is really not definable into these neat little categories in the way we think it is.
Right.
And it moves and shifts and becomes as your own needs move and shift and become. Right? But that still doesn't mean you're going to walk into some beautiful Hindu tradition, gank a whole bunch of stuff, and run out and make a lot of money off of it. That's disgusting. But boy, to sit and be a part of a ritual like that and have it move you and go, I want to work with this path for a bit. I want to be here.
Yeah.
And you step in and you work and you commit and you connect. Hells yes.
Yeah. That resonates so deeply with me. When my first experience with that, where I felt like, oh shit, I'm on the borderline of appropriation for myself, it's so funny because it kind of just happened like you said. I was meditating one day. I'd been going through my Reiki trainings and still didn't know if I wanted to practice it. Just, I was trying to deepen my own personal knowledge and spirituality. And all of a sudden I'm meditating one day and this voice was like, you need to chant. You need to chant. Here's some chants. look into Lakshmi, look into what was the other one? There was Lakshmi, Ganesh, and I can't remember the third one right now off the top of my head. But and I'm like, wait, I don't know any. First off, I don't know anything about these goddesses, deities, whoever they are. But also, what I do know about them is this is very deep Hindu religion, Sanskrit. Predates a lot of anything that I ever thought of. I don't feel right exercising this, and it was like, no, this is your path, Adam. Figure it out. And I got gifted a book idea, so I got the book, and I started talking about it with some of my friends and people that I knew, and they gave me advice. And so it was like I didn't go to India. I didn't go sit with the Dalai Lama or something like that. I didn't learn chanting from the origins of, but I took a long time to understand why this calling was drawn to me. I think I did what I felt my due diligence to learn and appreciate the culture. And then now I've introduced some of that into my practices, into my Reiki trainings, into my energy work. And with that too, as I started to look into more earth medicines, I started getting called to do shamanic practicing. And again, that red flag went up in my head. It's like, well, I'm not a shaman. I'm not born into this, right? I can't say, hey, I'm a shaman. But in the conversations I've had with people in my life, the spiritual folks in my life, there's that understanding that you can practice these things and find your way of honoring them. But just understand, too, that that's not your practice. You're being gifted the ability to utilize this practice.
I wish there was another word for it, because I also have to, I hate fucking tiptoeing around this goddamn it. Sorry, I just said that. I hate fucking tiptoeing around this issue. It drives me insane. So I am very careful. I call myself a shamanic practitioner because I was not born into a culture that has, the spirits didn't choose me in the middle of a dream in order for within a culture. I get it. Generationally, I can't even claim that, right? But what we can say is the technique of stepping into the worlds and talking to spirits is not something that is just associated with one culture in one way. Our brains are actually literally set up to do this. Everybody has the right to do this. I wish we had a different word than shamanic.
Right.
For me, I'm like, journeyer. I feel like I just want to go, I'm a journeyer. That's what I am.
Yeah.
I'm a journeyer. And that means I know how to step in and step out at will in order to work with information from the spirit world. That is what I do.
I love that.
All the other stuff, I'm so tired of people saying to me, Danica, you can't possibly call yourself a shaman. That's offensive. And I'm like, A, I'm not doing that.
Right.
B, I'm calling myself a shamanic practitioner. And C, I feel like now because it's the accepted word here in America for what I would call a journeyer, what a journeyer does. Right? But people who really need this work and want to do this work are being scared off by people who are going, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't piss off this, we have to be all inclusive, it has to fit everybody, there can't be any rules or any room or any definition or any boundary because it has to be all inclusive all the time.
Right.
Well, everybody has the right to journey.
Right.
You don't have the right to take another culture's stuff. Journeying does not belong to any one culture ever.
Right.
As you can tell, I'm very passionate
I
about
can tell. That's
this
beautiful.
particular little moment.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate your passion behind it because it is a hot button issue, so I'm a yoga teacher, and obviously yoga was not invented in the United States, and there's a lot of talk about appropriating yoga for the Western style, right? And I'm not saying that there isn't a modicum of truth to that, right? But where I start to get sticky with it is, when people say, well, yoga is not what yoga used to be. Well, nothing is what it used to be.
Nothing.
If we stuck with language when we invented language, we'd all be talking in clicks and buzzes, right?
Yeah.
So everything has to evolve to base off the humanity's need for it.
Yeah, and the specific culture it's in at the given moment.
So, with people's ideas of yoga's bastardized now, yoga's not what it used to be. No, it's just grown.
It's
you can
different.
still find
It's
your
different.
authentic quote unquote yoga, but you can also now find all these variations of. Does that mean that we've bastardized the culture of yoga? No, we're growing it into different ways. There's different ways to experience this movement-based practice. So, yeah, I mean, again, I'm sensitive to the understanding that colonization has been a very strong thing.
Very much
and
so.
I think that one of the reasons that white people colonize so much is because we're so culturally starved.
Yes.
When we came over
We're
to the
so
United
bereft.
States. Exactly. We obviously, we stole whatever we wanted from whatever cultures we needed, but because we didn't have our own, right? And so now when we see this, let's take Hinduism, for example, tons of gods and goddesses, tons of colors, all these beautiful songs, all these beautiful stories. They're talking about missiles back in the days before we thought missiles were around, right? All this cool shit. No wonder a white Westerner is like, oh my God, colorful songs and deities and gods. Cool. Let's play with that. Right. Because we don't have any of that shit because we've basically pushed it away. We've put all of our spiritual understandings into this box of religion that doesn't make space for even fucking nature. Right. So, right. So like, it's not surprising to me that we see a shiny toy and we play with it till it breaks because we don't know any better.
Yeah. Because there's this giant void that we're trying to fill with a whole bunch of things. But, to me, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, I look back and I go, that's like saying to somebody, you can't sing.
Right.
You can't sing because this culture over here, they started singing first.
Right.
There's a line here.
Yes.
Because singers write songs, right? And one of their greatest honors is when somebody, without, there's permission, right? When somebody redoes their song.
Right, yeah.
In a slightly different way or however it is. It doesn't mean the singer knows that it's still their song. There's this threat that something's going to be taken away because somebody has done something different with an original seed thought, right? And that, that makes me sad.
Yeah.
That definitely makes me sad. But it is different to, I don't know, there's a beautiful writer out there, you steal their song and then like copyright and call it yours. That's a different animal. Right. But I think we have to be very careful about knowing the difference between those two things.
Yeah.
Because if we just, we're so good here at, as Americans of just running to extremes. But we do it because it's important, Cultural appropriation needed to be talked about. Something needed to happen about what was occurring. And we just, Americans are very passionate and our pendulum swings for Jesus on the other side. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna swing back. And that's why, I don't know, maybe just because I'm getting older, I have this moment in the middle, and I'm like, oh, there's that pendulum swinging. Uh-huh. That's going to come back sooner or later.
Yep. And it's fun to be the witness and not be caught up in that swing, right? And I think, we can't always be the witness, but there is a beauty in standing back and like you said, seeing that swing of like, oh, shit, okay, we're really misaligned right now, but it's pretty much to the top of that swing, which means it has to start coming back around to the other side pretty soon.
Yeah.
And being the witness to that as well.
Yeah.
And holding space for the people that are still caught up in whatever story that they have. Yeah. And I think that's, part of, I'll use Russell Brand as an example for this. Russell Brand, beautiful human being, was very, very addicted to drugs, had a very questionable life for a long time, even when he was an actor and musician and comedian. But he found spirituality. And once he found spirituality, goddamn, get out of his fucking way because you were doing it wrong. You're not where he's at, and he's going to fucking tell you about it. So I think there is a bit of that, like we get really excited about the shit that we're brand new to, and we get evangelical with it at times. Look at me, look at Tim Leary, right? LSD should be for everybody. Maybe not. Maybe not the kids. Don't talk about the kids yet. Yeah. But to Russell Brand's credit, he went out there. He blasted himself out there. TMZ, his podcast, all that shit. Listen to what I'm fucking saying. I'm the one that's right. And eventually, within the past couple of years, he's dialed it back to an understanding, a palatable delivery method. Because again, like, not everybody's ready for this path. Not everybody's ready for this quote unquote awakening. But putting the knowledge out there so that when the people are ready, they know where to find it. I think that's where that path is. And that's where people like Russell Brand kind of came into finally understanding that it doesn't have to be the wave the flag, turn on the fucking lights, look at how beautiful this is and how shitty you're doing. But just putting the flag up and be like, hey, there's an option over here.
Yeah.
You want to explore that option? Go and explore that option.
And that's what I love about the spirituality of all of the, I mean, with Wicca or however it is spirituality is limitless. How it expresses itself is limitless. And the second people start putting limits on it is when I start to get nervous. You know, we don't want to lose amazing things because we're afraid of not allowing room for all cultures and all genders to experience all cultures and all genders. And realizing that outside of culture and color, we're just human. Okay?
Right.
So that, that part's important. And that's why you find like so many cultures, whether it's the Day of the Dead or however you look, this is the time, so many ways, this is like the time of year for people to honor, One of my favorite things, simple to do around Samhain is find pictures of your ancestors. Find pictures of those you loved who have passed out of your life. Yeah. And believe me, on my altar, those are all my pets that have passed as well. Without question. Yeah. There are my ancestors there. There are any of the friends who have passed. There are all of my pet friends who have been with me. They're all there on the altar. And it is, I will light a candle for them. Out of every meal, I will put a little bit of food down for them. I will put, as a solo practitioner, these are simple things that you can do. You can, carve yourself a jack-o'-lantern. Yeah. These very simple things that help you, and on that night to just say out loud the names of those you are honoring. And talk to them. Yeah. Talk to them about your year, of what just happened to you in the past year. The good stuff, the bad stuff, all of it. Because they're there. They're there for you. Yeah. So, that would be, a very simple suggestion for something that somebody can do, whether you're Wiccan or not. Right. On that night, to tap in to those energies. And also, there's another one, if you want to go one step farther, and that's burning something on a piece of paper that night. Oh, yeah. That you've got to cull. Yeah. The hard stuff, not the light. If you look at it and it looks too easy, it is not the one. Yeah. It's not. It's got to hurt a little bit. It's got to, there's fear. Yeah. We can't, there's fear in letting go, and that's also part of this night. The dark is here. The fear is there. We have to be able to sit still in our fear and not run from it. Right. How do we act in the face of fear? About moving through it instead of running away from it. That actually, so one of the things I've learned in my plant medicine journeys, so I sit with psilocybin quite a bit and some other hallucinogenics, but that is the message that I get constantly, is that when I'm faced with something that terrifies me in those moments, if I turn and run or I try to scare it away, it eats that shit up. And it's like, yeah, give me more of that, buddy. Right here. I'm going to get bigger. But as soon as I turn and I face it and I open my arms and I open my heart and I bring it in and I love it and I give it a hug and I tell it how much it means to me, it softens and it finds its place. And I think that's a lot of that fear that we have because we're afraid, like, for example, I'm afraid of how powerful I could potentially be.
right? And that's partly because the power that I've shown in the past has been the toxic power, the shadow power. My anger, my aggression, my confusion, my ignorance. But when I can embrace that and step into the true power that I know that I have, and that power isn't like power over you, that's the power of love, the power of understanding, the power of acceptance, the power of me knowing that there's something out there bigger than me and that I'm beautifully working towards understanding that. That is some of the best medicine that is the hardest to find for me. But but in essence, it's really easy. We just got to really kind of step away from what our ego has told us for the past however many years.
Yeah.
And my ego, when I finally realized it was driving the boat, it was been about 30 years, 35 years. And just because we recognize that that's a story we've been telling ourselves, that doesn't mean we can immediately step away from it. There's work to be done around that. And so getting to the point to where you get that understanding that you can step away from those limited beliefs that you have and expand yourself into the idea, which I love the idea because people die over beliefs, but you can change an idea with new information, right? So get the idea in there that there's something bigger, there's something that you can move within, and it'll open up so much for you and erase a lot of that ignorance that we hold on to.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I when I think of when people walk into that fear and grief in place, I like how Sow-wen holds space for it to not have to be anything else but what it is. So, say you have somebody in the middle who is like crying and hurting. You're sitting there alone or just doing the ritual alone, and you're crying and hurting and telling all your gods to go fuck themselves, and you are begging to be out of this, and you have this space to scream and cry, and I don't want this, and I'm not gonna love this, and I'm gonna fight every step of the way of this, and this is where I am, and fuck off. And you're in it, and you're okay. Your pain and your rage and your this and your that, it doesn't have to be changed. It just is like you can fight or let go or be or this or ever, but just do it.
Right.
Just do it. And it's kind of how you're trained to hold space, whether it's spiritually or as counselors and things like that. When people are going through grief and rage, the last thing they want to hear is, "Don't worry, it'll be better."
Yeah.
You don't worry. All you have to do is focus on this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry. You hang in there. It's going to get better. You would rather throw a dart through their eyeball when that happens.
Yeah.
So to be able to just sit there as witness and go abso-fucking-lutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't it's messy, and it should be.
Mm-hmm. Life's messy.
Yeah. That whole concept of being born through blood and pain. It is messy.
Yeah.
Let it be.
Yeah.
Let it be. And
Yep.
that way we don't try and turn it into something easier. I mean, for some people it's easy, for some people it's not.
Yeah.
So as long as there's room for all of it, awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of what we were talking about earlier with not sitting with sensations. We've created pills to just stop all those feelings, right? You feel like shit, here's a pill, take the pill. Don't worry about side effects, it'll be fine, right? But one of the messages I got when I started doing my plant medicine journeys, and not always hallucinogenic, I sit with Hape and Sananga, like different types of like grounding medicines, but they're intense, and that's part of it is like we need to figure out again how to sit with that intensity, to sit with the full spectrum of our human emotions, and not just I don't feel good, so I'm gonna take this pill and hopefully I'll feel better. Well, sickness is dirty, so the medicine to fix your dirty sickness should be probably dirty fucking medicine, right? Like sitting with Hape, it amplifies my immune system, but it's blasting mapacho tobacco powder and plant ashes into my nose, right? There's nothing pretty about that. There's like snot coming out. There's a big, gelatinous loogie that comes up afterwards. There's all this grossness that we would consider disgusting that happens around it. But the effects of that medicine are none that I've ever experienced from any other medicine that I've had. It helps me so much. And I now appreciate how dirty it is and how non-accepted it is, because that's part of that journey too, right? Learning how to sit with the things that don't make you feel the best, but still have a beautiful outcome. That's pretty much humanity. Humanity sucks, right? Humanity's hard. It's difficult. There's so many changes and lessons and all this shit. But outside looking in, grand scheme of things, humanity's fucking beautiful, right? It's really great. Even the death and destruction that we have, that we cause on our own, the global warming, the chemicals, all the shit that we've created, all the stuff that we put ourselves through, there's a beauty in it. There's such a beauty in it. I don't want to just sit in that beauty where there's still a lesson to learn, but there is a beauty in the destructive nature that we're embracing, because that's not the only way it can be. Yeah, that's just, again, that's the pendulum.
That's
right?
the wheel of the year.
Over here.
That's the wheel of the year.
Yeah.
Because in this wheel that is constantly turning for all time, forever and ever and ever, right? There is a time for Samhain and there's a time for summer solstice. It's all there. And even though there are these points where you distinctly experience, a very specific energy, they are all part of the same circle. You can't separate them. Right? So even though it's like this clockwise kind of thing, you, in your lifetime, can be anywhere on that circle at any point. And knowing also, and it's hard when you're in a good solid place of depression or grief or whatever it is, but the wheel is always turning.
Yeah.
The only thing constant is change, which means even your grief changes, even if you don't want it to. Even your depression changes, even though you don't want it to. It may not, it'll change. It may not change for the quote unquote better.
Right.
That term. But it will change whether you like it or not. And sometimes there's hope in that. Sometimes it's like, the wheel is always turning. There's death, life, rebirth. Death, life, rebirth. It just keeps going. So somewhere in this death, perhaps, might be the seed of rebirth. If I just hang in there.
Right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Ah, my gosh. Okay, so as we wrap this up, you've already spoken to a couple rituals, but for the folks out there that want to maybe dip a toe into this practice and honor the dead, honor this beautiful ritual or this day, what are some of the rituals that they can do to kind of either start it out or just some things that they can just do as an offering?
Yeah. So I mentioned a couple before. So I would put out pictures of all of your beloved dead.
Okay.
I would put a candle to them. Make whatever you eat that night, put a little something out for them, whether it's a little sweet, a little whatever. My ancestors are Irish. They like a good whiskey.
There you go.
So they like a good Guinness. It's going on the altar, when you do your pumpkins, or your jack-o'-lantern or a little turnip, however you want to do it, carve something out and light it on those 3 nights. Okay. The other one was think about the things that you want to let go of, like the serious ones. Burn it, right? And also, if you do divination of any kind, I would whip out your cards or your runes or your pendulum or whatever it is, right? And pull a card for 1 month of each month for the next upcoming year up to Samhain.
Okay.
It is so much fun when you go back and you look at that and you're like, oh, good goddess, what is that? Yeah, those would be my basic suggestions.
Beautiful.
They're very easy, and as you go trick or treating with your kids, understanding what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't know about the trick or treating on that one. That's beautiful knowledge. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. You're a joy to talk to. I
Thank
love your
you.
knowledge and love conversating with you.
Right back at you.
Right on. Well, I will have you back. We will talk more Wiccan and Pagan and awesome holiday stuff in the near future.
Sounds great.
All right, we'll see you soon, love.
All right, bye.
Thank you so much for spending time with Danica and I. If you have any questions or need to reach out, please check out the show notes on how to get in touch with Danica or myself. And also, please like and subscribe to the podcast. Share it to those who you feel would benefit from it. Obeisance and love. We'll see you next time.